So Francis Ngannou has worked his way back towards a title shot against Stipe Miocic in a long-anticipated rematch where he'll try and do what he could not do before, and that is dethrone the reigning champion Stipe Miocic in their rematch in the main event of UFC 260 this weekend. But one thing remains the same. Ngannou is an extremely terrifying man. So terrifying, in fact, that even though he got dominated by Stipe Miocic in their first encounter, he's now the favourite going into their rematch, despite losing every single round of their first fight. That just tells you how terrifying Ngannou is in the heavyweight division. I'm going to go through his top 5 threats. I'm going to start at number 5, end with number 1, and try and find some kind of argument for why someone would be a good fight against Francis Ngannou. I think there's some fighters that can beat him. I think there are some fighters that are definitely going to lose to him, and they're still going to be on my top 5 list. This is not me saying that these people are going to beat Ngannou. I'm just arguing who has the best chance to do it. Starting with number 5, ending with number 1, and it's going to be a real difficult time of picking fighters because this man hits like a Ford Escort. So number 5 on my list is a Ford Explorer. No, it's not a Ford Explorer. It's a Jeep. It's not a Jeep. It's Derrick Lewis. He's a massive guy and he's got big power, and actually he's beaten Ngannou before. I don't believe that Derrick Lewis would beat Ngannou in a rematch whatsoever. I think it's very, very clear that Ngannou was just simply some random guy in the cage with Derrick Lewis the first time they went out there and fought each other. I think now Ngannou's shaken off those cobwebs. He's got some momentum again. If Derrick Lewis was in there in the main event of UFC 260 against Francis Ngannou, I think Ngannou would decapitate him in the first round. But Derrick Lewis is a very dangerous guy for Francis Ngannou. He's got power in his hands, and maybe that'll be one of the big reasons why Ngannou was so timid to exchange with him in their first fight anyway, because Derrick Lewis can Ngannou if you let him land that big shot. However, I don't see him doing it whatsoever. He's got a good chance purely because of that one-punch KO power, and he's got a solid chin as well. So if there's anyone other than Stipe who's going to be able to take those shots from Ngannou, I would argue it's probably going to be Derrick Lewis in the heavyweight division. He's got a good chin. He covers up well. I just don't think he'd beat Ngannou. I really don't believe so. I think that every single time we watch a Derrick Lewis fight, he wins fights. He's won a lot of them recently, don't get me wrong. But he seems to get beaten the shit out of before he eventually wins the fight with one big punch. And I don't think you can afford... One does not simply get beaten up by Ngannou, okay? You don't take more than a couple of shots on the chin off of Ngannou, and I feel like we've seen a recurring theme in Derrick Lewis's bouts where he does really take a beating before eventually dishing out one back. And I don't think you can take a beating against Ngannou the same way as these other heavyweights, and I think Francis Ngannou would decapitate Derrick Lewis, but he sits at number 5 on my list. That just goes to show you how I feel about the heavyweight division's chances of beating Francis Ngannou moving forward. Moving on to number 4. Speaking of Derrick Lewis taking a beating, Alexander Volkov is number 4 on my list. Drago himself. And this is not Alexander Volkov. I should have added something at the end of his name here at number 4 on my list. This is Alexander Volkov 2.0. He's bigger. He's got a back tattoo. He's more dangerous. He's more skilled. He's added in a couple of new techniques as well. I like the new Alexander Volkov. I think he has a real good chance of going out there and beating Francis Ngannou purely because the size of him. Overeem is similar size to Ngannou. I want everyone, after this video, or maybe right now, this is really going to affect my ad revenue though. Don't do it right now. After this video, look up Volkov versus Overeem and just watch the fight back. It's on BT Sports YouTube channel. Ngannou would look small. Okay, and I think that would be a huge deal when it comes to a guy who's so physically intimidating to everyone else in the heavyweight division. To finally have a guy who's imposing on you in the cage, plus that chin's going to be a little bit harder to find as well, because I doubt Ngannou's used to fighting fighters that are 6'6" or 6'7". I don't even know what fucking height Volkov is. It feels like he's 6'9" sometimes, but even still, dangerous guy, got power, he's very patient, he doesn't rush in with stupid shots, he'll take his time, he'll poke at you from range. I think someone controlling good range against Ngannou is something that could do quite well. I do believe that Volkov would get chinned by Ngannou at some point in their fight. I've just seen Volkov hit on the chin a lot of times by other heavyweights, and you just can't get hit that same way against Francis Ngannou. Something else I've noticed about Volkov as well, his fight IQ. Even though I've just praised him a little bit, there are times in fights where he'll literally just freeze in front of his opponents. Like against Overeem, when Overeem was backing up against a cage. He genuinely would have moments where he just stood there and watched Overeem, like with a hand on Overeem's wrist. There are some little moments of Bad judgment from Alexander Volkov. We saw that at the end of the Derrick Lewis fight as well. Why are you going for leg kicks? You're winning the entire fucking fight. Why are you investing in leg kicks 10 seconds left into the fight? But he got clipped by Derrick Lewis. I think he'd get clipped by Ngannou as well. I feel like some of those shots over the top would catch him a little bit off guard and maybe sleep him in that first round. But Alexander Volkov's got a really good chance to keep at range, be the bigger man, and who knows, maybe after a couple of those front kicks to the stomach, Ngannou's not so Ngannou anymore. I'm going to put Alexander Volkov at number 4 on my list, above Derrick Lewis, but Ngannou beats him all the same. Moving on to number 3, Ciryl Gane. I like this guy. His name's not Ciryl Gane, it's Ciryl Gane. Ciryl Gane is number 3 on my list of threats to Francis Ngannou, and I think there's a lot of a mental edge that Gane has going into a bout with Ngannou, knowing that he's been his training partner for so long back at Ngannou's old team. The coaches know Ngannou that are now training Ciryl Gane. They're going to give him a lot of input and a lot of information about maybe some things that he can exploit in Ngannou's game. Now, I know some of the things that you can exploit in Ngannou's game are quite obvious, like tire him out, get past the first round, go for some wrestling, but I feel like on the feet, in terms of like some really I don't think anyone's focusing on any holes in Ngannou's striking. I think they're just trying to avoid the striking and take the fight elsewhere and outside of the first round. But with Ciryl Gane, I feel like the coaches who have been with Ngannou for so long before he left them are now going to give Gane all of that information. Hey, he doesn't throw this uppercut off the right side. It's not quite the same as off of his left side. He's got a little hitch in his shoulder from an injury 5 years ago. That left hook is not the same. You want to attack things from this angle. I think Ciryl Gane's got a real big advantage, and also just the mental edge of training with Ngannou for so long. Ngannou wasn't KOing him every single day in sparring, otherwise we wouldn't even have Ciryl Gane. He'd just be an absolute puddle of sludge. Let's be real, Ngannou wasn't KOing him every single day in sparring, so knowing that he has some sparring sessions with Ngannou that he's done before, fair enough in bigger gloves, but knowing that he can stand in front of Ngannou and maybe win a couple of sparring exchanges, I would not be surprised. There was a bit of footage that came out that actually looked like Gane was getting the better of Ngannou in the sparring, and Ngannou was landing good shots, but Gane was moving around, and that's another thing I want to talk about here. Gane has some of the best footwork in the heavyweight division. We saw that in his fight with Jairzinho Rozenstruik. We've seen that with all of his fights before as well, because Gane got a submission game. He can grapple as well. He's learning how to grapple as well. It wasn't quite there originally, but now he's sort of putting some things together. He's got a couple of submissions early in his career. He's got that part of his game to go to if he's not quite liking the stand-up. He seems like he's got a good chin. He does leave himself a little bit open. I think I would go with Ngannou with those 4-ounce gloves, catching Ciryl Gane in the first round. But Ciryl Gane's got great footwork, good movement, he keeps at range, he's not stupid, he's got great fight IQ, he picks at his opponents, he never goes in recklessly. We saw that against Rozenstruik. He had every opportunity to go in there recklessly against a Jairzinho Rozenstruik, backing up the entire time against the cage, but he chose to stay behind his jab the entire time. And another thing about Ciryl Gane that I like as well in a fight with Ngannou, he's not afraid to be boring. I know the Rozenstruik fight it was a good fight, in all honesty. I watched it back. I think it got a lot of unnecessary hate because it was mainly Rozenstruik not doing anything whatsoever, and Gane was just doing his job, which was to pick apart Rozenstruik for 5 rounds. But knowing that there's not a part of Ciryl Gane's brain where if a crowd member starts going, woo, 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 he's going to start crashing forward into Ngannou. I like that kind of fight IQ. I think Gane's got a really good chance of beating Ngannou. I just don't think he would, because I haven't seen Gane's power enough to gain respect from Ngannou in the cage. I need someone with a little bit of pop in their shots, which is why I put Derrick Lewis up there, even though I think technically Ciryl Gane is a much better heavyweight than Derrick Lewis, and I'd pick Ciryl Gane to beat Derrick Lewis as well. I think that someone with a bit of power would stand a better chance against Ngannou if they had the footwork and the movement of Gane as well. I just don't think Gane's going to be able to get Ngannou's respect too much, and I think Ngannou's going to like to take a shot to give a shot, and when Ngannou gives a shot, it's a little bit different, you know what I mean? Now, moving on to number 2, we get to the real big dogs. And when I say big dogs, I mean someone from a lower division. I don't know why I called him a big dog, but Jon Jones is a big man for the heavyweight division, and he is moving up now. He's already at heavyweight. He's looking like a heavyweight in his sparring videos that he's been posting and some of his training clips that he's been posting as well. I don't think he would beat Ngannou. I think only number 1 on my list has a chance at beating Ngannou. I don't think Jon Jones is Jon Jones anymore now. If USADA turns a blind eye and we get that pre-Anthony Smith Jon Jones back, or that pre-OSP Jon Jones back, maybe he's got a real good chance in going out there and working some stuff in the grappling. I don't know if you guys have noticed this. Jones can't take anyone down for shit, okay? And if he does get them down, they get right back up. So the wrestling factor of Jon Jones, in my opinion, since USADA has been around, is not a fucking factor anymore. Dude's got no fucking strength. I think he would beat Adesanya because Adesanya's a little bit smaller. But people his size, that are his weight, Jones doesn't seem to be able to manipulate them in the takedowns as much anymore. And I feel like Ngannou would be able to shake off those takedowns. And one thing I also want to mention about Jon Jones, although he's number 2 on my list, and I think if there's anyone who's got a chance, it's him, because he does have the wrestling that Volkov, Gane, Derrick Lewis do not have. He has that wrestling. He's got good footwork. He's technically better than Derrick Lewis, so he's above these other guys on my list. He's going to have a little bit more pop in his shots as well. He's got a long reach. I think he has a longer reach than Ngannou. That would be something that Ngannou's not used to. Even Alexander Volkov, I believe, has near enough an equal reach with Francis Ngannou, or close to it. Jon Jones actually beats Ngannou in reach, and I think that would be something that he could maybe use. Plus, Jon Jones' eye pokes would be really handy to use as well. His eye pokes are second to none. Best eye poker in the game by far, so if he lands a good eye poke on Ngannou early, like he does in majority of his bouts that he wins, some kind of eye poke or a groin shot is guaranteed in a Jon Jones win. But still, if Jon Jones lands that eye poke, Ngannou could be seeing things a little bit differently as those rounds go on, and those shots might not land early, and Jon Jones can pick guys apart from range, so he might throw the oblique kick on Ngannou, throw that front kick to the body as well, maybe stop some of the forward pressure of Ngannou. I think Jon Jones has a really good chance, but one thing that I believe is a weakness of Jon Jones, and has been for so long, man, I can already see the comments, but I'm going to say it. I know he's like the greatest light heavyweight of all time, but his boxing is so fucking shit. Okay? And I know that that's going to be a shocker, because he's beaten people with boxing. I believe there is a little bit of a weird thing with fighters sometimes who have a reach advantage over their opponents, where they get away with a lot of stuff that they wouldn't get away with against some guys with bigger reach, in my opinion. And I think Jon Jones is one of those guys, because Dominic Reyes was at a severe reach disadvantage against Jon Jones, and Dominic Reyes was pull countering with a bolo uppercut. I don't even know what it was. He would just shift back and land a bolo uppercut on Jon Jones, who had something like a 5-inch reach advantage over him, and has no reason to be that close to Dominic Reyes. Dominic Reyes was landing rear bolo uppercuts against Jon Jones and shots whenever he wanted to. And when Jon Jones goes backwards, he leaves his chin up in the air. I know that some people have not been able to find that chin, or some people have, but he keeps a hand on his jaw as well, so there's not as much whiplash when a shot lands. We saw Petr Yan use this against Aljamain Sterling. He keeps his hands tucked to his head, keeps them very close in, so no one can really get a KO blow. Overeem tried using this against Volkov as well. Stopped the brain rattling around so much, and Jon Jones does it just by putting a little hand on his jaw as he moves backwards to stop it whipping around all over the place if he does get hit. I just don't see Jon Jones beating Ngannou. I think Ngannou would bowl right through him and get a KO in the first round pretty brutally. So yeah, moving on to number 1 on my list. Now I've trashed Jon Jones, I apologise. I realise this is a top 5 threats and I've done nothing but really talk about how all of them would lose to Ngannou. But number 1 on my list is Stipe Miocic. I think he beats Ngannou. I think he's got a better wrestling game than Jon Jones. I think he's stronger than Jon Jones. I think he hits harder than Jon Jones, and those consequences are something that you have to have against Ngannou, and that's something that Jon Jones, in my opinion, even whilst moving up to heavyweight, is not going to have. He's never had power in his hands. Miocic has power in his hands. He's got great footwork. In my opinion, Miocic is everything I've listed about key qualities of 2, 3, 4, and 5 on my list combined into one, okay? He's got the footwork like Ciryl Gane does, but Gane doesn't have the power. But he's got a bit of power on him, so he's got the aspect that Derrick Lewis has. He's got the size factor because he also is quite an intimidating man, and he's a large man, and he's beaten Ngannou before. So he's got the intimidation factor like Alexander Volkov. He's got the skill of a guy like Jon Jones, and also, like Jon Jones, he learned the way of the eye poke that Jon Jones taught to DC, that DC has now taught to Stipe Miocic. Miocic has got the art of the eye poke. He's got 3 fucking eyes in his whole name, for fuck's sake. Like, he's going to use them very well, and I think he's going to chew up Ngannou this weekend. I think Ngannou's going to be swinging reckless. I think Stipe's going to immediately dive underneath and just be too strong in the grappling situations early. Ngannou's going to get back up, but every single time he does that, I think it's going to get better for Stipe Miocic every single time, and I think Ngannou will lose this weekend to Stipe Miocic. Now, I do understand that there is a chance that Ngannou lands an uppercut on Stipe Miocic while he shoots for a takedown, because he landed that uppercut in the first fight as well. But something I've noticed about Stipe Miocic, guy keeps getting better. And that's something that I can't say about a Jon Jones on this list. Jon Jones, in my opinion, is getting so visibly worse every single fight in his career. Slowing down, not as explosive, not as much energy in the later rounds to push a pace like he usually would. Look at the 4th and 5th round against Dominic Reyes compared to the 4th and 5th round against Gustafsson in the first fight. He arguably could have been losing both of those fights early on, okay? I just don't see the same thing with Jon Jones, and Miocic is getting better as his career goes on. His footwork has improved. He's trained for 3 wrestling camps in a row against Daniel Cormier. Before the Ngannou fight, he was training for JDS, Alistair Overeem, all guys that he's not really going to need to use grappling against. I know he eventually did use grappling against Alistair Overeem, but it's a stand-up fight. The guy is going to be bringing stand-up problems to you. He's going to be training his stand-up. I feel like against DC, he's honed in his wrestling so much, and he went from being outworked in the clinch against DC in the first fight to then neutralizing the clinch of DC in the second fight and doing quite well as the rounds went on, but losing the grappling to DC in the second fight in terms of the ground control. DC beat him up on the ground in that second fight. Then in the third fight, Stipe was using the clinch to win. That's a massive sign that he is improving. Fight IQ is there, the power is there, the footwork is there, the cardio is better than it was in the first fight as well, because people talk about Ngannou being gassed out in the first fight. It's almost kind of weird that Stipe wasn't able to finish him, in all honesty, because Stipe himself was also gassed out in that first fight. I think that cardio's completely changed after those fights with Daniel Cormier. We saw what he has in the tank in the later rounds of the second fight, and even throughout the trilogy as well. I'm looking forward to this one, and I think Stipe beats him, but everyone else on the list is going to lose to Ngannou. Those are my top 5 threats. Click that button up there, like and subscribe. I'll see you later, and we'll find out this weekend if I'm correct about Miocic. But if Ngannou beats Miocic, I am just saying this right now, he's going to fucking flatten Jon Jones. I promise you. Click that button up there. Goodbye.